IBC says they are prepared, and we also have the campaign trail where Jubilee is in Kwale. In fact, I've been told that the place is Likuyani. It's not Lukuyani like I earlier mentioned. That was a correction there from Gideon Murenga, who says the place is called Likuyani in Kakamega. That was also one of the things we're following up for you. Let's listen into what's happening at the AIC church right now.
But also a great businessman. We've read his eulogy of the enterprise, and the man's industry was truly legendary. The things that he did from the very beginning to the very end speak for themselves and have provided employment to thousands of Kenyans and also contributed immensely to the economy of this country. It is true to say that he was a real giant. Nicholas Biwott went to school with my father. They were classmates in Kapsabet in 1953. And my father told me many stories about him. He said, firstly, that in Kapsabet, nobody ever took the first place in class. That was the preserve of Nicholas Biwott. And I think that was the beginning of many firsts in his life. And where my father, Bartonio Rotich, and others later on excelled in sporting and represented Kenya in the East African Games in 1957, Honorable Biwott made a good account of himself academically. And when my father passed on in 2007, in his true style, Mr. Biwott came late in his helicopter, and when he stood by my father's grave, he touched me on the back, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm there for you." And last year, when I was contesting for the chamber elections, he actually went and mobilized delegates for me, physically himself. He invited me to Serena, and he did so many things for them. And he never asked a favor. I mean, one day when the Prime Minister Netanyahu was here, he called me and said, "Can you kindly see that I get a good place to sit in the forum?" And of course, being who he was, he came into the room with Mrs. Biwott, and they sat at the front. And I was really glad to see that he was recognized by the government, the CS Amina, the president. They called him forward, and really, one of the days that he was really happy, and he called me at night and said, "Thank you very much." Honorable Biwott has made a huge contribution in this country, an immense contribution. In business, he executed his moves with precision, with deftness, and with stealth. He was like a grandmaster in a game of chess, because he would only, at the end of it, see the result of his enterprise and his industry. So he's a man that I shall miss personally, because he stood by me, and I really love and respect. And I think in the fullness of time, history will be written, and there will be amends made where people said the wrong things about him. And for me, I think as Kenyans, the most befitting tribute that we could make to Honorable Biwott is to have a peaceful election, is to respect the government that will be elected, the government of the day, because he always stood and respected the government. Now, I'll just give you a short story. Sometime in the late 90s, when Charles Field Marshall was here, when they were expanding into Uganda, a good friend of ours, Honorable Kutesa, assisted in that. And later on, Honorable Kutesa called me and asked that I arrange an appointment with Mr. Biwott. I called Charles, and he said yes, asked him to come. And I went to the airport and picked Honorable Kutesa, and I told Honorable Kutesa on our way to the airport that Mr. Biwott's meetings are not always conventional. So we went into town and had lunch in a Chinese restaurant. And about 1:30, Charles called and said, "Come to Harambee House now." And I drove to Harambee House with Sam Kutesa. And when we got there, I met Charles standing with his father-in-law. And the meeting was held on the stones in the parking lot in Harambee House. And the meeting, as usual, did not last more than 5 minutes. So we will miss Honorable Biwott. He's truly, to quote Shakespeare, he bestrode this narrow world like a colossus. May he rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kiprono. Our next speaker will now come from the political leadership, and I will call on the area MP for Keyo South, Honorable Jackson Kiptanui, to make few remarks, introduce your fellow colleagues, and then I will call on Alex Tolgos, who is the governor, to also talk on behalf of governors and the senators. Welcome.
Thanks, Daktari. To the family, Your Excellency, the former President of Tanzania, mourners, Bwana asifiwe. God is good all the time. I'll make very few remarks, and I wish to pass my condolences to the family, friends, and all of us who are here for the passing on of Honorable Biwott, whom I took over from him as Member of Parliament for Keyo South constituency in 2007. And if I may remember, when we were campaigning in 2007, most of my friends and relatives were fearing for my life. They thought, like, do you really know what you are doing? Biwott cannot be removed by anyone. Yeah? But when I defeated him in 2007, he did show us a sign of great leadership by conceding defeat very fast, na akanipongeza, and from 2007 to as late as last month, the other month, he has been supporting me in developing the constituency and other elected leaders. He was truly a great man, a statesman, and a friend. I remember one incident in 2009 when I took over. I invited him for a function and he came. And then he did ask me in Kiswahili, sasa nani mgeni wa heshima, wewe ama mimi? Then I said, it's me, I'll be the chief guest. Akaniuliza, how much are you giving? I said, I'm giving 50,000. And then he said, because you are the chief guest, I was prepared to give 100,000, but I'll give 40,000 because you are the leader. Now from that time henceforth, I made sure that whenever we met in a function, I made him the chief guest. And finally, I'll share more in the constituency on Thursday. But I remember one time, last year when we were campaigning, I wanted to be the governor. And I was with Murkomen, and I think Governor told us, he said, you try, lakini mkishindwa, msilie, kwa sababu hata nanyi, mlitoa mandume wengine. And I did take it seriously, but when I was defeated last time, nikakumbuka alisema, ukishindwa, ukumbuke ulitoa mwingine. On behalf of all the members of parliament who are here, senators, pengine nikesimamisha waheshimiwa former members of parliament who are here, tafadhali msimame. All former members of parliament wasimame. Sitaweza kutaja majina yenu, lakini tumekubaliana kwa niaba yenu wote nitamkaribisha Mheshimiwa Speaker Ole Kaparo, former speaker, anene kwa dakika moja kwa niaba ya all former colleagues wa Mheshimiwa Biwott. Just for a minute.
Naomba ni mheshimu familia ya marehemu Biwott, na kwa niaba ya wale waliokuwa bunge na hawako sasa kwa bunge hiyo, wengi wao natarajia hawana haja ya kurudi, naomba kutoa rambirambi zangu kwa familia, marafiki na jamii ya marehemu Mheshimiwa Biwott. Mimi nilijifunza nilipoingia bunge toka kwa Mheshimiwa Biwott na wengine, nikamrithi kama waziri wa viwanda alipoasha waswa hiyo, na nikawa spika wake kwa miaka 15. Namjua kwamba hakupenda watu wazungumze mambo yake sana, na nitaheshimu hiyo kwa kukosa kuzungumza mambo yake kwa heshima ya marehemu. Au wale watakaozungumza baadaye mjue mambo ndio hayo. Namtakia pahali pema peponi. Asante.
Asante sana.